Hi, my name is Randy Fay. I am going to give you a little demo today of a new feature of DDEV-Local, and that is the casual web hosting feature. It's cheap and easy, it's open source, and I'm sure you'll hear me say several times this is not a replacement for managed hosting. They're different things. But this is a way to get a site up onto the internet. Maybe it's a specialized site, maybe low volume, maybe you're just trying to show it off, maybe you're just maintaining it as you're demonstrating it to somebody. There's a lot of good uses for it, and let's take a look. So people have been liking DDEV local for a long time. They do the local development, they do a DDEV config, they do a DDEV start, and they say, there it is. And they can change PHP versions. Each project can have a different one. It's way easier than a normal server setup. So people say, can we do this on a server? And yes, now you can put a DDEV project on a server and DDEV start, and everybody in the world can access it. So there's a reason, though, that it has casual and experimental all over it. So we're going to take a look at the caveats on it. The performance characteristics and server sizing aren't known. I'm going to demonstrate today on a Linode server, a nano server, a $5 a month, 1 GB server. And I've got a couple of my trivial sites already on one of these, and I think I'll add this one after we get done today. And of course, I could up it to the $10 a month version, and it'd be fine. But the overall performance characteristics and sizing aren't known. And of course, there's no automatic way to scale it up like you would expect in a managed service. This isn't a managed service. You have to end up managing the host on which DDEV and Docker are running. And of course, from the security perspective, while the web image has been hardened and sudo's been removed from the hardened image, there isn't any team of security experts signing off on this new feature. And I should point out to you that you may want to try some other techniques. If you're just trying to share your project right now with a friend, you don't need to do this. Just use the DDEV share command, and it works great. It uses ngrok, very easy to use. And of course, DDEV, the company, has another product called DDEV Live, which is managed hosting. And it has some really nice features, and I encourage you to check it out. Okay, here's the requirements. You need a Linux machine. It needs to be reachable from the internet, and you need to have control of DNS for the site, and of course, preferably for the server too. So we're going to set up DNS and point it for both of those. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. What we're going to do for the server is we're going to spin up the server, point the server and site DNS to it, and then we're going to set up the firewall, and then we're going to create a user so that our user can complete the setup. We don't want to work with root on a server. We want to stop that as soon as we can, always. So, okay, let's do it. We're going to spin up the server. Let's go to Linode here. I am going to create a Linode, and I'm going to use Ubuntu 20.04 because it's working really well with DDEV these days. It has the Docker and Docker Compose that we need in it, so you don't have to work as hard to install it. I'm going to choose Fremont, California, and I'm going to choose the Nanode plan, the $5 a month plan. And we're going to call this demo.thephase.us. And I'm going to tell it to put my SSH key in there for root already. So here we go. And this will take just a couple of minutes, but I'll pause while it's doing it. now. So let's go ahead and do our next step here. We've got it spun up, and now we're going to point the site and the server DNS to it so we can use those easily. So here's the IP address. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to go over to my DNS, and the uh, project, the site that we're going to move is pkhrconsulting.com. And so the first thing I'm going to do before I try to move the whole thing, I'm just going to move a test version of it. So I'm going to say that I want to move demo.pkhrconsulting, and I'm going to set it to 1 minute timeout. And here's my new IP address. I'm going to use that. And now let's make a name for the server as well. And that's going to be demo.thephase.us. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I didn't delete it before, so here we go. I did a test run of this before, and I didn't delete this one. So I set it to 1 minute timeout, so it's probably okay, but we can get in there anyway. But I'm going to change it to the new IP address. And let's just do one thing while we're over here. I like to not forget to set the reverse DNS when I'm setting up one of these. So here's the IPv4 address, and I'm going to edit the reverse DNS demo.thephase.us. Oh, it doesn't have the forward entry yet. It'll be there in a minute. I'll come back to that after a while. So, okay, let's take a look at where we are. Um, we've pointed the DNS adequately, and now we need to log in there and set up a firewall and a user. So let's go ahead and do that. So I can just go here, and I'll use the IP address for now to get in there because I'm not sure that we can. Let's see if we can. Oh, look at that. Because I already named this once, I have a clash, and I can get rid of it. It looks like I'm already on my way. Okay, here's my new site. This always bothers me to see localhost here, so I'm going to set the host name, demo.thephase. So I've got the host name set now, and we are going to set up the firewall. So UFW allow 80. We're going to allow 443, the HTTPS port, and port 22 for SSH. And we will say UFW enable. And we know that it's good, so here we are. So we have UFW status, and we have those things coming through. So we have our firewall. setup. We certainly don't want to install Docker with the firewall off. We only want to allow through the particular places. Okay, so now we're going to create our sudo privileged user. So I am going to user add -m rfa. So now we have the rfa user. We're going to put it in the sudo group. I guess that's not the right command, but I can just say, oh, it is the right command. I just didn't say rfa. So now rfa is a member of the sudo group, so be able to use sudo. And let's set the password for rfa. I'll need to use that for sudo a little later. And let's go ahead and set up the rfa SSH settings. So I'm going to, I forgot one other thing I want to do. I want to set rfa's shell to bash so that I can tell what I'm doing. So we'll do a SSH keygen. It creates the keys in the right directory with the right permissions and that kind of thing. And now I'm going to create the authorized keys file, so I'll be able to go in there and I'll take my public key and I will paste it in here and make permissions a little more limited. And I should have everything I need to do as root should now be done. So I've got the firewall set up, I've got my user set up, and so now we're going to log in as that user and install Docker and DDEV. So I will come back out of here. And I'm just going to log in as an unprivileged user. And here I am. I'm able to go right in there. And now we're going to install Docker and DDEV. So let's take a look at the instructions for that. Here's Docker instructions in the DDEV read the docs. So we are going to just do this command, apt-get update and apt-get install docker.io and docker compose. Did I type it right? Probably not. Got it right on the second time though. And so yes, we do want to install those. Now, you never want to forget that on Linux, you have a couple of post-install steps. So you have to add the user to the Docker group. So we'll do that right quick. Now you see that RFA is in both the sudo and the Docker groups. If I do a Docker PS, I should be able to talk to it, and I can't. So I will log in again, and now I'm in. So I've got the Docker officially added to my account now. So now we've got Docker working, and what we need to do is install DDEV. So let's go ahead to the docs for that. We're going to use the script to install. You can also use Homebrew, but we're going to use the script to install it. So I'm just going to copy here, and I'm just going to paste. And this just curls the script and runs it. And we can see what's going on now. It also installed MakeCert for us. We have DDEV 1.16.1 here, so we should be good. So we've got DDEV and Docker, and now we're going to check out the code and import the files in the database. So I usually put all my projects in a directory called Workspace. That's a hangover from long ago using Eclipse, but that's what I always do, and that's where I always expect them to be. So I'm going to clone the code here for this. So now I'm in the directory. There's everything I want to know, everything I want to have. We're going to um, import the files in DB. I guess we need to configure it before we can do that. So let's do the configure. Uh, we'll just do it with the additional FQDNs to start with. No, we won't. We'll just do it DDEV config. It automatically figures out the project name, the doc root, the project type, and now I can do a DDEV start. We'll wait a second for these things to be pulled. Really, we should have disabled phpMyAdmin, and we should have disabled the SSH agent as well. So we'll do that in a minute. Okay, there we are. We have it running. Um, we can't easily hit it with a browser yet because we aren't pointing the DDEV site to it, and we haven't put a database in there, so we just want to install anyway. So let's remember though to do the DDEV config global dash dash omit containers equals DDEV SSH agent and DBA. We don't need the DBA, which is the phpMyAdmin, and we probably don't need the DDEV SSH agent. Usually that's used in more of a development environment. So I'm just going to do that, and we'll get those done. And now let's get some files in a database up there. I always put files in a database in a directory called tarballs. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to copy from my system at home, where I am here. I have these files and database downloads, and I'm going to SCP star 201125 star to demo.thephase.us workspace peakhrconsulting.com.tarballs. So there, I've got those up there, so I'll just SSH in again. So here they are. My project is running, and I'm going to do a DDEV import files dash dash source equals peak. I'm going to get the files in there, and now I'm going to do a DDEV import DB, and we'll get the DB in here. It looks like I did the wrong thing. That's the right command. So now we have a running site. I can curl the site. And I should see the regular Drupal 7 contents, and I do. So I can hit that now. So I have a running site, and it has its files and everything else. So we've checked out the code, imported the files in the database. Now, what we're going to do is use an additional FQDN for testing. So we decided to use demo.pkhrconsulting.com as our site. So let's do that. Oh, did we already do it? No, we didn't add any additional FQDNs yet. Demo.pkhrconsulting.com. And now we need to do a couple of global configuration here. We need to tell DDEV globally to bind all interfaces, which means listen to the outside world. In a development environment, we don't want to be listening to the outside world. We're going to, I guess, here's the omit containers. We already did that. We're going to do the use hardened images, use let's encrypt, and let's encrypt email. So let's do that. And what else do we have to do? We already did the omit containers. Router bind all interfaces has to be done. Okay, there they all are. We have everything set up here, and we can do it. We're going to do a DDEV power off so that we start over with all the right images and the right global configuration. Now we're going to do a DDEV start. Let's just ping demo.peakhrconsulting.com and see if it's resolving. And it is resolving, so that's good. So we'll do a DDEV start. And it has to pull the hardened image since we now changed the configuration to require the hardened image. the router is negotiating with Let's Encrypt to get that new cert. And so we should have the new cert now, and we should be able to hit https://demo.pkhrconsulting.com, and it could even work. And it did work. That's amazing. There it is. If you look at the certificate, you'll see that it was just issued. It expires in February. It's now November. This is 3 months from now. There it is. So we've got demo.pkhrconsulting going. So that's good. We can go around to it. We can log into it. All those things. So we've done our DDEV start. It's working. And there's some things that you'd want to do after that. So the next thing that we'll do, and we might as well do it right now, is to add the real domain to the project. So what we're going to do, we didn't want to do this until we had tested the site to make sure that it was working. But what we would do is go back and get our IP address here, and go over to our DNS management. Go to PKHR Consulting. Go to DNS. And now we can change the actual root of this. So we'll change it from where it was to where it is now. It's a great thing to wait to do this until you've already tested the site with a different subdomain, because that way you know that it's good, and then as DNS propagates, you can expect it maybe to land a couple of times at the old site before it lands at the new. There, we've got that out there, and that will be propagated within a minute or two, because we set a very low TTL on it earlier for the move. But we need to now add this in our config.yaml. We're going to add pkhrconsulting.com, and we'll do a DDEV start again. We need to wait just a second for this start, because we're hoping that Let's Encrypt will pull up the new name. Let's see, ping pkhrconsulting.com, and it would be nice if it knew about the new one, the 192 address. That's the one that we want. So let's see if a DDEV start will get that for us. Let's just go visit PKHR Consulting, and it is not working yet. Most likely because we hurried too much with getting that through there. Well, actually, yeah. So this does not have it has our development certificate on it still, and we don't want that. We want the real thing. So let's just DDEV power off. And because we want it to renegotiate, we want the router to renegotiate that. We'll do a DDEV start again, and we'll see if Let's Encrypt can find demo.pkhrconsulting now. Okay, cross your fingers, hold your breath, and let's do a reload on this. And there it is. Now we have the new one. You can tell that it's a new cert. It's got the February 23rd. We've got the site moved up there. Let's just take a look at the status report. It needs to have the database update script run on it. So we've got a little bit of work to do, but things are looking pretty good. We can check for updates. It's a real live site, so there we are. Um, let's take a look at what else we need to do. So follow up, we just added the real FQDN, the fully qualified domain name, pkrconsulting.com, to the live site. So it actually moved over. We set the DNS to point to it, and then we did a restart. And I did have to do a DDEV power off and a DDEV start to get the router to renegotiate, probably because we started too quickly after changing the domain name and DNS. The instructions in the let's just take a look here. Here's the casual web hosting section of ddev.readthedocs.io, and it tells you how to set up so that DDEV will automatically start on system setup, because on system boot, you certainly want that. So there's the technique for doing that. So you want that. You probably want your containers to auto restart. That's a global configuration. You want to enable outgoing mail from the site. If you have any transactional email, especially mail, usually it would go to you, but if you have any transactional email, and you have to enable outgoing, you probably want to enable outgoing email from the server, and tell it where to go so that you get notifications if the server has trouble. Those, we won't go into those. Setting up outgoing email from the site usually means installing an SMTP module and bouncing it through one of the Mailgun or one of the email providers like that. And you probably want to configure offsite backups. That can also be done with a module or plugin. There's many other ways to do it. You can do a DDEV export DB and save the file if you want to, or a DDEV snapshot. And reverse DNS. I was almost going to do that at the very beginning, but I recommend that you do set up reverse DNS. Helps mail to work. So we got it. We got it going. Some resources for you. The casual web hosting docs are in ddev.readthedocs.io. You can just search for casual in there. The DDEV repo, github.com, DDEV. And don't forget about DDEV.com, the DDEV Live project. DDEV has been sponsoring DDEV-Local now for 4 years. And you should try out DDEV Live for real managed hosting. There's a great startup deal out there, and then I think the pricing for a regular site is $15 a month or something like that right now. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and happy to see you in any of the support locations anytime, and I hope you'll try this out. Thanks a bunch.